All right, good Tuesday evening, Mid-Michigan. Chief Meteorologist Chris Easlick with your Tuesday night weather update. And we'll talk about what is on the way as we head towards tonight. We'll talk about what has been happening as we've gone throughout the day. We've had a little bit of freezing drizzle in some areas, some slippery roads that seems to be winding down for the moment, or at least compared to what it was a little bit earlier tonight. But then, of course, we have what is on the way later this evening. And it all starts with our winter weather advisory map. This is a bit of a change compared to what we had a little bit earlier today. We had some of our southern counties that were not included with this that are now included. The fact that Caleb is on the screen here. Sorry, I'm checking to make sure our sound levels are good, and Caleb is joining from Adrian, Michigan, and he's usually my guide to whether he can actually hear me. But back on the subject at hand, we are seeing a bit of a difference here in the map this afternoon and this tonight, where we didn't have our southern row of counties, Shiawassee, Genesee, and Lapeer included in this, and Gratiot County was not included in this, but they were added this afternoon. And if you watched our live stream last night, we talked about how some of the system snowfall totals were shifting ever so slightly to the south. Well, it almost took one more little nudge today. It didn't have a dramatic change, but there was just enough of a southward shift to where it was justified to put those southern counties, Gratiot, Shiawassee, Genesee, and Lapeer, into this winter weather advisory, and it was also expanded a little bit farther south to an area like Grand Rapids as well. So here is a quick summary, and then we'll get into the hour-by-hour forecast, and of course, what is ahead with our expected snowfall totals. If you watched our stream last night, they really haven't changed a ton, but I think the timeline is important. We have accumulating snow on the way for tonight. Some of it could be heavy at times. Seems like there is a chance we could get to rates at least at times to be around an inch per hour, maybe even a little bit more. In some isolated areas, we think most of the area picks up about 3 to 6. We think that area to the south, where that Shiawassee, Genesee, and Lapeer County area is, and then at least a little bit of Gratiot County, we have in a 1 to 4 inch range just because of the possibility that we've got some mixing involved there. Our main issue is the roads and the possibility of school closings, which some districts have already started to close for tomorrow to get ahead of the game. Some evening activities were canceled tonight because of some of that freezing drizzle that lingered after some of the snow showers departed the area. So that's been another nuisance as we've gone through today, some icy roads. But tomorrow we expect most of the area to just pick up some snow. And then as we go towards around the 5 to 10 a.m. time frame, that is when we expect some of those southern counties to have the potential for a little rain to mix in or just change to outright rain as well. So questions are going to be difficult tonight because there are 550 of you on the stream this evening. We love the attendance that we have on the stream, but please realize that that is a lot more than normal. So I will do my best to see some questions along the way. Appreciate you all joining in. We're up to 570 now, so this thing is taking off here. But this is the latest as we look towards tonight. We've got that system on the way, starting to move into the southwest corner of the state. I think an arrival time for us in the TV5 viewing area is probably closer to about 11 tonight. I think that's when you'll start seeing it move into some of our western areas and some of our western areas. So roughly about this area right here, Isabella, Gratiot, down to Shiawassee, and then it will gradually spread off to the east as we go through tonight. The timeline that we expect as that moves through is right about here. So let's just fast forward to that pretty quickly here, because that's, I'm sure, what you all are here for. Is we expect that southwest corner to see it first. We gradually move through the overnight hours, and you'll notice as we start moving forward in time, you've got these deeper shades of blue that are starting to mix into the main batch of snow. Those are likely those heavier snowfall rates that may approach an inch per hour at times. I think if there is a timeline where we have the best shot to pick up around an inch per hour or get very close to that, I think we're looking somewhere around midnight to about 6 a.m. I think that is the best time frame that we can look at for some of those heavier snowfall rates. I think we'll probably get other times between a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch. I think we're going to get some pretty good snow for the first couple of hours of the overnight. I think as we go through the day on Wednesday, it will probably lighten up a bit. But I do think this, for at least several hours, will have some pretty efficient snowfall. So we fast forward a little bit more. This is 3:30. still seeing a pretty widespread area of snow. But remember that time frame we talked about 5 o'clock in the morning until about 10 o'clock. You see that area of mixing and just outright rain starting to move into areas like Shiawassee County. It nudges its way northward just a little bit into portions of Gratiot County, maybe even portions of southern Saginaw County. It's going to be a really close call for some of those areas. And then it just kind of moves east as we go through those next several hours. And then before the system pulls away entirely, as we get closer to mid to late morning tomorrow, we start to make that transition back over to snow, and then the system itself pulls away. One thing that I think could make verification a little bit troublesome in that southern area is I think you'll have the chance to pick up a few inches of snow in those southern areas as this gets underway tonight. And I think what could happen after that is we get that rain involved, that rain melts off a little bit, we get some of that slush, compaction takes over, and I think it could be a little deceiving how much you actually pick up in some of those southerly areas because of that mixing factor. So here is our snowfall map, and we'll go through the hour by hour again if we need to, but this really hasn't changed since yesterday. We expect most to pick up about 3 to 6 inches, and then off to the bottom, we've got about 1 to 4 in those southern zones. That includes southern Gratiot, just a very small sliver of southern Saginaw County, and then over into Genesee and Lapeer County. Lapeer County north is pretty close to that cutoff. We've got also areas like Chesaning that are pretty close to that cutoff as well. But I do think if you're in Chesaning, you might be a little bit closer to the top end of that 1 to 4 inch range. And maybe the areas a little bit farther to the south in those counties is a bit closer to the 1. I think you'll see some drop off there, but right around that green line where we expect some of that mixing and just outright rain. I think that's going to be a pretty tricky area where exactly that sets up. And then also, we do have this little text box up in the corner. Occasionally in some of these events, we get what we call banded snowfall, and they're essentially just localized areas where the snowfall rates pick up and we can get some locally heavy snow. There have been hints of that in a lot of our data as we've gone throughout the last couple of days that there's potentially a localized area of maybe some 6+ totals that sets up. It's been kind of bouncing around a little bit, hasn't really given us the most consistent signal. This time around, other storms, it can be a little bit more clear where that's going to set up. But just for the sake of getting a map out there this afternoon, and just for the sake of the fact that it should be pretty localized, is we just felt like it was easier to put a text box on here to avoid confusion and trying to pin down the exact location of what could be a smaller band of snow. But just know that that's possible, though even though it's possible, I think it's more of the exception rather than the rule. Just to give you a sense of where, if I had to make a call, where I think that would be, just so I don't just hedge and just say, oh, it could be anywhere. I do think there is a favorable zone probably somewhere in here that I think that could set up. I think if I had to say, you give me a dart and throw it there. I know some of you think we just throw darts at the board anyway. But I think if I had to pick a spot where I was going to place a wager, I would say probably somewhere around the central part of the viewing area, I think has the best chance of that happening. And that does seem to be supported in some of our ensemble data. Ensemble data just takes a lot of our information and it combines a lot of our data into one. It essentially combines it into one big pile and then basically combines it all together and spits out the result. And this is what it gives us, is this is the probability of 6 inches of snowfall or more through 7 p.m. on Friday. So it goes out till Friday, but the bulk of this just includes what is going to fall tonight and tomorrow. Notice the percentages are not what you would probably consider great. I know it probably is a little tough to see here, but it's got about 38% around Mount Pleasant, 32% around Midland, with lower chances in places like Owasso, Flint, and Bad Axe. So if you just look at the darker shades here, those are some areas that I think have the higher probability, the better chance of some of those locally higher snowfall totals. But again, I think that's more of the exception rather than what is going to be typical in that area, the way things look right now. But we'll keep our eyes on it. We'll see what happens. The criteria for the National Weather Service to issue a winter storm warning, you need at least 6 inches of snow in 9 hours. And so we are under advisories right now, but they did mention in their discussion, they give out their bulletins as well as our forecasts, and we kind of go through both just to make sure we don't miss anything. And they mentioned the possibility, if we do get some of that banded snow, there is an outside shot we may be able to reach that criteria, and perhaps there could be a short-term warning that is issued tomorrow morning if that happens. It's not a guarantee. That's why we have advisories in place for now. But I think tomorrow morning is going to be when Matthew is in here, or assuming I haven't gone to bed yet. Usually I get in bed around 1 o'clock or just after. We'll have to kind of watch radar trends and see if there's any really strong bands of snow setting up, and potentially that could be something that develops through the morning. So we'll see some of that. Jonathan says, I see some of that data where it showed some 6 to 7 plus on that M20 US 10. Yeah, Jonathan, I think that is kind of that area that I just talked about. If I had a really good gut feeling as to where that is, that would be where I place my wager if I had to pick. So that's a really good point with some of the data that you've seen. Linda said, I heard over 7 inches in the Freeland area. Honestly, it really depends on what source you're looking at. It's also a snow that's going to have a lower ratio. And what I mean by that is for every inch of water you have a certain amount of snow. A standard Michigan snow is usually somewhere between about 10 to 12. And that is where you're not quite concrete, but you're not fluffy snow either. Call it just normal character snow, whatever that definition is for you. But then sometimes you get wetter snows that are really heavy, the really heavy concrete type snows. Those can be around 5 to 6 to 1. So 5 inches of snow for every inch of water. Or you can get those really fluffy snows that are sometimes 20 to 30 to 1. So this is probably going to be a little bit lower than 10. I would say maybe closer to about 8, 9, somewhere in there. Not a huge difference, but I do think this is going to be a heavier snow than a fluffy snow. And so what I would say is, if you saw that 7 inches for Freeland on, say, a weather app or something like that, a lot of the weather apps use just the straight 10 to 1. They usually don't round down if it's a little bit lower. So if I had to say 7 inches is probably a little bit much for Freeland unless that band sets up over there. But Freeland's in our 3 to 6 zone, and probably I would say closer to maybe 5, I would say. So hopefully that helps. Let's see. Yeah, Mary, nothing new. No one's saying this is the storm of the century. It snows in the wintertime. Part of the reason we're highlighting it just a little bit more is we know that the morning could be a little tough. It's not the amount of snow. This happens a couple times at least every single year, this 3 to 6 type snowfall. So it's not Snowmageddon. You don't need to buy groceries for the next week and a half, I promise. It's more so just let's get through the morning. Let's highlight the potential for parents to make plans for their students if they might be out of school. But I promise you it is not the end of days. Huron County, Larry, you are in the 3 to 6 zone. The tricky part about Huron County, Larry, is I do think there might be some lake effect snow on the backside as this pulls away, but that's ultimately going to depend on the wind direction. So stay tuned on that. I wouldn't expect necessarily dramatic accumulation after this pulls away, but don't be surprised if you see a little lake effect snow behind it. Essexville, 3 to 6. Rachel. Let's see. Apologies for the stuffy nose. I'm sure I'm not the only one battling that. What's different with this snow system compared to the one that hit at the end of November? That one was purely snow. If you're talking about that system, what was it, Thanksgiving weekend? They all blend together now. But I would say that one didn't really have the mixing component to it. That one was fairly straightforward with just snow. It took a while to get going, but once it did, it really got going. And there was a time with that one where, for a lack of better term, like to say it was puking snow for a while. I think we have the chance for that tonight, but that would be the difference. That one was also a little bit colder. We had a chance to get through that one without temperatures near freezing. I think that is something to watch as well. And I think that's something that keeps this snow a little bit heavier rather than fluffier, is just the fact that we'll be a little bit closer to the freezing mark. Now, we've been bitterly cold at times this week, so is that going to be enough to really help us out on the roads? Probably not. Or at least not as much as we would typically. Michaela, winds, are we expecting drifts? I don't think so, at least not in dramatic fashion. We've got some gusts between about 25 and 35 tomorrow, maybe a little bit stronger near the lake. But when you've got this heavier, more compact snow, I don't think it's going to move around a ton. Might blow around a little bit as it falls, but I wouldn't say significant blowing snow is on our radar with this one. Thoughts on school closings in Saginaw Township? I think there's a shot, that's for sure. Ice situation at 7 a.m. for Byron Linden area. We'll be watching that, Linda. Or Melanie, I'm sorry. I saw someone was named Linda was popping on, and I associated with that your question. Ice situation at 7 a.m. for Byron Linden area. I'd watch the mixing, but it seems like we'll probably get some rain or a rain and snow mixed in there. I think temperatures are going to be critical for that, though. We're close. But I think what's nice about this starting tonight is that there's plenty of notice for this, and I do think you'll see some treatments throughout the night that will hopefully keep us ahead of the game tomorrow. So that could help us out. But you could very well come up above freezing a little bit in that area at 7 a.m., Melanie. So I think it's going to be something that you'll just have to assess in the morning. And we'll have traffic updates all morning long if you need a quick look at that. MI Drive's a good source too. Let's see. Will the winds be dying down? No, I wouldn't say they're dying down tomorrow. Are we going to have 40-mile-per-hour gusts? No, I would say they're closer to 25 to 35. Yep, a couple of schools have closed already. Yep, Bay City, Heather, good assumption. You're in the 3 to 6. Possibility for ice accumulation. Caleb, you're in a more unique situation down in Adrian. I haven't seen that. I don't think you have any advisories, so I would say if you don't have any advisories or anything like that, probably not. But I also haven't paid attention to Adrian much. So let's see. Let me pull up the snowfall map. I apologize. I thought the snowfall map was up. It was the advisory map. So here's the map through Wednesday. Heather asked, is this the total through tomorrow or the accumulation by morning? This is the total through tomorrow. Excuse me. And remember, we have this up here. We are going to be watching if a band of snow develops. Could be some locally higher totals in there, but I think the vast majority of us are probably going to fall within this 3 to 6 range. Mount Pleasant, 3 to 6. Caden, don't start the 6-7, please. You kids. Donna asks about Flint, 1 to 4, Donna. You've got some mixing and melting involved. That's why you're in the lower range. Andrew asks, I've got stuff to do tomorrow afternoon around 3 p.m. Andrew, I would say so. It's always tough to say because, It's not an easy job clearing everything, but I would have to think that by 3 o'clock, at least your main roads are probably going to be better at that point. I'd still be careful on side streets, back roads. Stacy, I wouldn't say it's concrete, but it's not going to be fluffy either. Asking about snow character for the snow blower. I am interested, Stacy, because you're up in West Branch. I think it's too late to make this call now. We've got to eventually just roll with something. But I'll verbally say it. We're in the trust tree on this live stream. I wouldn't be shocked if maybe there's a sliver up here that's closer to maybe 2 or 3, and maybe we're right on the edge. Debated maybe adding a small 2 to 5 inch zone right about here, but it kind of seemed like splitting hairs at that point, and I still think there's a chance some of those areas could get to 3. So not going to make that change, but Stacy, I would be interested to see what you come up with in West Branch tomorrow. Bob, will Midland get more snow than Saginaw? I think there's a chance, especially if that banding sets up. Ice situation between Vassar and Flint. Vassar should be mostly snow. Flint could have some brief mixing, so be careful in that area. But it might be a close call between whether it's going to be freezing rain or just outright rain. Might get some temperatures to come up above freezing at that point in Flint tomorrow morning, which is why we could change over to just regular old rain. Shannon, appreciate your reports. I'm a teacher in Saginaw County. Shannon, we thank you. Caden, I was going to cancel school until you did the 6-7 joke. So that one's on you. I'm just kidding, Caden. I don't have that power. But I think there's at least a decent chance. Sarah, is there a chance that BCPS, I'm assuming you mean Bay City Public Schools, or just in the off chance maybe Bullock Creek, but I'm assuming you'll mean Bay City Public Schools. There is a chance they could be closed. And Ryan, appreciate that. You know what? We're trying. I probably have more gray hairs forecasting winter weather. It's not perfect all the time, but we do our best. Susie, good to see you. I remember you. 7 a.m. tomorrow. It could be dicey. I'd be careful. I hate to. The road questions are always tough for everybody asking. I don't mind giving Matthew more work, of course, but Matthew has the traffic map in the morning, and I promise you that will be a big part of his forecasts tomorrow morning, getting you through this. So I don't necessarily want to punt to Matthew, but it really is truly tough to say what the situation is going to be by tomorrow morning and how well the crews will be able to keep up throughout the night. I'm sure they're probably out treating now. If I looked at the MI Drive map and pulled up the plow feature, I'm sure I could probably find a few trucks that are out. And that's just the MI Drive map. Yeah, we've got, I always love the name. Snowflake is out on 75 near Birch Run, and then Dreams of Summer is out. Let me pull that up so you can actually see. But you've got 2 plows here on 75 near Birch Run and Bridgeport, it looks like. This is the image from Dreams of Summer. This is Snowflake right here. Everybody loves Snowflake the plow. Rebecca, Pinconning, Linwood, 3 to 6. There we go. There's the map back up. And yeah, Sherry, there was freezing drizzle. Freezing drizzle has been kind of a frustrating part of everything lately. No problem, Cheryl. No problem, Rachel. Grand Blank. Richard, down that way, you've got some mixing problems. I think you'll pick up a couple of inches of snow potentially before the mix happens, because you'll probably get a couple of hours of snowfall before that happens. But then if you get some rain involved, that rain melts some of it down. That's why our range down that way is a little bit lower. Standish area, Tam, about 3 to 6 inches of snow still. What's going on, Craig? Ice between Clio and Saginaw, asks Matt. Excuse me, Matt, I think from Saginaw down to Birch Run is probably good. Clio's kind of right around that mixing area. Close call. Close call. If you're talking about significant ice accumulation, like on trees and stuff, I don't think that. But if icy roads, I think is fair game throughout tomorrow. But I think those temperatures that are hovering around freezing, I'm interested to see how that works out. Because we've been cold all week, so I think it'll take a greater effort to get those road temperatures up than typical. Like if we would have had some of the warm temperatures that we have had through the fall up to this point, I think we could have better luck tomorrow, but we've been cold for a while now. So it is really tough to say. Craig, what time is it starting? It depends on where you're asking, Craig. If you want to shoot me where you're asking from, that would be great. It sounds like it's already coming down in Battle Creek. Reliable report coming from that way. A little biased on that report. Jonathan asks, so talking about the possible banding, what causes the banding to be so hard to predict? It's just the fact that it's a really small scale feature. It's a little bit easier to track these big incoming storm systems. It's not necessarily tough to figure out the path that they take, but almost think of it like, you've got a car and then you dig under the hood a little bit. With every little layer you peel down under the hood, every little screw you take off, you find something else. And so the more you get involved in something, the smaller the process is to make the whole thing run. And it's trying to find these little areas of lift in the storm. Makes it a little bit tougher to do. Craig asks about Breckenridge. Let's go through the timeline one more time. So Craig, thanks for asking that, because you forced me to do that. I would say if Breckenridge, Craig, probably somewhere around 11 o'clock midnight and onward. This is 2 a.m., 3:30, 5 o'clock. There's the mixing. Mixing still ongoing at 7. Mixing still ongoing at 9. Some of you have asked about areas like Clio. Look how close that gets. But then before it pulls away entirely, it does change back to snow. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, Zach, favorite weather chaos coordinator. That's what I'm going to start going by. No more chief meteorologist, just weather chaos coordinator. And when we see you, we know it's time to. You know what? I try to be that way. I try to only tell you when things get to this point where I think they have a chance to be more impactful. And certainly the timing in the morning doesn't help things. Yep, Sandra, 3 to 6 in Tuscola County is my expectation there. Though there are some signs that, some of that banding could pop up in portions of Tuscola County too. So I think 3 to 6 in that area, but could we get some totals slightly over 6? I'll be interested. Katie Joe, 4 to 6 near the I-69 corridor. If we can stay cold enough, Katie, I don't think that's the problem. I don't think that's not doable. But I think that mixing factor, if we can get that mixing to go a little bit farther to the south, if we don't have that, then I think that's a plausible scenario. But with the signs of rain, potentially getting that far north, I'm not ready to say that yet. But would I say it's impossible? No. But it would require a little bit further of a southerly shift. Rachel likes chaos coordinator as well. So maybe we just roll with that. Chaos coordinator, sound good? What do you think, Christian? Chief chaos coordinator? Got the thumbs up from my producer, and that's really all that matters. Good evening, Jessica from Coleman. Yeah, Coleman hasn't started yet. It'll be a minute. All right, we've got 27 minutes until the news at 10. So we'll keep this going for a few more minutes. If anyone has any questions, I'll run through the hour by hour one more time. Wind gusts again tomorrow, 25 to 35, but being a wetter snow, I don't expect it to move around a ton. Once it's down, that is. Port Austin, dawn 3 to 6. But also Port Austin, dawn, I would watch the lake effect on the back if you get a little bit of that. But I think we'll have more clarity on any lake effect that follows this tomorrow. Hello from Flushing, Kaylee. Caleb says, LOL, I'm thinking he likes chaos coordinator as well. Starting a movement. Okay, never mind. Caleb likes chief meteorologist. So we might have to put it on the poll. Mike Tacey, Southfield. Let me just check, Mike. Let me see. You're probably running into maybe slightly less snow going to Southfield, but I think Southfield has that mixing factor too. I think it'll depend on your timeline. I would be careful, Mike. Catherine, you've been spot on for most. I think we've had a decent winter. It doesn't always go that way. For better or for worse, sometimes you can feel like you turn over every stone. And sometimes it just blows up in your face anyway. But between that system over Thanksgiving weekends and I think we've had some decent results this year. I hope that's all we try to do. I promise when it goes bad, nobody is more upset than us. So I appreciate you, Catherine. I know not everybody shares that opinion all the time, but I promise you the work that goes into this is more than you know. Amaya, has Mount Pleasant started yet? No, probably closer to midnight. Sarah, snow days in Bridgeport, Saginaw, it is possible. A lot of schools closing already. How much in Alma? Jody, that's a good question. You're close to that cutoff. Here's the snow map. You're probably right on the edge of the 3 to 6 range, but know that you're very close. If that mixing line shifts a little bit further to the north, it could bump you from one range to the next. Stephanie, I don't necessarily think they're holding out hope, hoping something changes. I'm almost wondering, though, if it is more just to see how things are in the morning, especially with this happening throughout the night. I've seen situations before. Not every situation is equal, and I'm not saying that for this, but over 10 years of watching this, I've seen situations where we get an earlier start in the night and we're able to keep up with it enough. I think that might be a little tough to do with some of the snowfall rates we have for this one. But I don't think they're hoping it misses at this point. It would take a pretty big swing and unforeseen change in data, I think, to miss. And yeah, Amanda, I will run the hour by hour one more time. Let's start with the Sky Tracker first, just to show you where things are setting up at the moment, and then I really have to end the stream. I don't think that I don't think the 10 o'clock news is optional. Christian, is the 10 o'clock news optional?
I wish it was.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get out of that. So, Sky Tracker shows it's in Southwest Michigan now. We fast forward a little bit. I think an arrival time in some of those southwesterly areas closer to about 11 o'clock midnight. Pretty much snowing over most of mid-Michigan by 1, if not 1, a little bit closer to 2 and 3. The mixing comes in about 5, lasts until about 10, and then pulls away and we get a couple of hours of snow before eventually it just dissipates. But here is, I've mentioned it a couple times. If you're in the thumb, you've got some lake effect snow behind that. It is going to be tricky because you notice between those two frames, we've got what appears to be more of a northeast to southwest orientation. And then we go through time and it flips back to a northwest to southeast orientation. So those lake effect bands will be almost like a fire hose kind of spreading out over and over again. And so to me, with that much movement, there may not be significant accumulations, but it might be spread over kind of a broader area, similar to a sprinkler, something like that. So I think a little bit of accumulation in the thumb. Apologies, don't want to get into a coughing fit. A little bit of accumulation in the thumb following this, but I think we do most of the work in the morning. Yeah, Mike, I hope so too. Zachary, I don't think you know what you started with the chaos coordinator. Chris likes Chief better. I don't know, put it on the poll. June, why isn't Channel 5 showing school closings? I'll double check on that for you. I'll see what's going on with that. All right, it's 9:40. As you can see, I am not TV ready. I've got my makeup artist in the makeup room. It's gonna do everything for me. Totally kidding, we don't have those. But I do have to be more presentable, I suppose, for the newscast. But that's the gist. I'll show the snowfall map one more time. Again, expecting most of the area to pick up about 3 to 6. Keep in mind this little text box right here. I think we're in a situation where we could get some localized bands that are possible if that happens. I do think it's in the realm of possibility that there could be a couple of areas that pick up around 6 inches of snow or maybe just a little bit more. And again, we didn't put it on our map, but I'll show you if I had to make a gut feeling as to where I think that will be. I think around the US 10 corridor into Saginaw, maybe into Tuscola. They're really tough to pin down, these banding scenarios, but if I had to make a call, I think that's where it could be. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Appreciate you, Nick. Appreciate you, Jonathan. Appreciate you, June. Evelyn, I would say one more question before I can get through. 4:30 is going to probably be dicey everywhere. I would be very careful. But Matthew will have updates starting at 4:30 if you need a little confirmation. I will look into school closings and maybe why they're not on the air. But Yeah, Stephanie, that was a joke. Some of us wear makeup. I'm not good at it, so it's probably worse if I do it. Appreciate you all the same. But I will look into the school closings. You can always find them on our website, though, if for whatever reason we're having a technical difficulty with those. Otherwise, I appreciate all of you being on the stream. We'll do this again tomorrow, and whether the forecast follows through or whether it doesn't, you want to throw virtual tomatoes at me tomorrow, we will be here just the same. And if you do have reports for us throughout the day tomorrow, we always appreciate those. Sometimes we need your eyes. We can't be everywhere at once. And yes, Mike, we do expect things to get cold again later this week. Teens and low 20s this weekend. All right, appreciate all of you. We will talk to you tomorrow. Have a great night. Please stay safe on the roads late tonight and tomorrow morning.